All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Week 1 of the NFL season is in the rear view, and as the great Bill Belichick once said, we're on to Cincinnati. That's right, folks. It's our primer episode. We'll give you our top must-start players for Week 2 of the season. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and joined, as always, by the pen behind the Fantasy Pros Primer, a man who's never afraid to dust them up with the best of them on the internet. He's Derek Brown. D-Bro, how are you after consuming an entire slate, an entire weekend's worth of data?
I'm pretty good, man. Feeling pretty good. Week 1 betting was not great because just it's a wild slate and stuff. The one thing before we get this rolling, you started throwing out Bill quotes, man. I thought you were going to go with "No, baby, I can't talk. I'm trying to coach a football game," or "No Patriot scouts may enter the building." So I was kind of surprised with the one that you chose. So just keeping it a buck here.
Hey, gotta have a little respect for the glory days, right? If we can't forget those times, man. He's starting to
look a little bit further in the rear view these days, man. Woo.
Yeah, tough outing for him in North Carolina right off the rip there in week 1. But not here to talk college football. We are here to talk NFL. And D-Bro, I gotta ask, man, is there one thing without spoiling the rest of the program that really stuck out to you when kind of looking through week 1 usage or production trends?
I think a lot of guys were really close or could have had big games, but they didn't because whether certain plays didn't go their way, they didn't get the usage they probably should have considering the matchups and stuff. But I think week 2 is going to be a reckoning. I think we're going to see some things kind of go back to the center of guys that probably should have had big games in week 1, but because of the lag time, we might get that in week 2, Seth.
Yeah, it's always, Derek, one of those situations where you don't want to overreact to what you see in week 1, but you also can't underreact to some of the usage you do see. So it's a great balance. It's a great line we try to walk, and excited to do it here with you again in week 2. Quick shout out to everyone before we get going for either tuning in on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel or the audio feed. We see you. We appreciate you. Easiest free way to support us. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new as well. Also, if you want a chance to win a signed Jamar Chase Bengals jersey for free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest and complete the form by doing either A, download that Fantasy Pros app, B, leave a review for this podcast, or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you're going to receive, and we will be announcing a winner right here on the podcast, so make sure you ring that bell so you can't miss on any episodes we have coming out, and when we announce that winner, if you are that lucky winner. So D-Bro, let's go ahead, let's jump right into it with your must-start quarterback for week 2 of the season.
Dude, it's got to be Dak Prescott. He is a QB 12 in ACR right now, and I know I'm kind of cheating because I was supposed to, the crux of this video is to pick somebody outside the top 10, and he's right there in the borderline. But this all comes back to when discussing about players that should have had a big game and things didn't go their way. Dak Prescott has to be the poster guy for this. He is the one leading the conversation. When you're a quarterback that led the NFL in yards lost in week 1 due to drops with 61 passing yards lost, wow. And we could talk about multiple touchdowns lost because whether it was Dak not, hitting a seam ball perfectly or guys dropping it or bang plays and then not holding on, Dak was so close to a monster game. And I'm going right back to the well, man. Looking at Dak Prescott, again, 6th in catchable target rate, 3rd in hero throw rate in week 1. You marry this with the Giants defense and secondary that really didn't show up, man. They weren't this defense that we thought we were going to get this year in 2025. And I know, again, it's one game, but I think Dak Prescott comes ready this week, man. The secondary for the Giants just didn't hold up great last week. I know it was versus Jaden Daniels, but Dak Prescott is still incredibly talented. Dallas is going to be chucking the ball. And the Giants secondary last week gave up the 11th highest yards per attempt. And for as good as this defensive line is supposedly going to be this year, Seth, had the 8th lowest pressure rate last week. So Dak Prescott should have time in the pocket. As long as CeeDee Lamb doesn't drop every target thrown his way, should have a big game.
Yeah, the big question, I think, as you alluded to there, is will the New York Giants front get to this younger Dallas Cowboys offensive line, who I will say they played really well in that opening game against the Eagles. Obviously, Jalen Carter, throwing himself out of that game early in that one, I think helped. But, the Tylers, the Guytons, the Smiths, the Bookers on that offensive line really held themselves up well. And I'm not afraid of this Giants secondary at all. So if Dak Prescott has the time, and CeeDee Lamb can make some catches, and George Pickens can get a couple calls going his way. Nobody gets worse calls in the NFL than George Pickens, by the way. I mean, this guy has lost so many yards and touchdowns over the years to some passing interferences or, bad calls by the
Steelers
refs.
Homerism kind of seeping into the show quite early. Man, jeez. Thought we would have gotten to take 4 or 5 before that possibly came up, but hey, here we are.
Yeah, here we are, baby. But Dak Prescott is in for Debro at the must-start quarterback position. Let's move to running backs, where you're in on a different Denver Broncos running back here in week number 2.
Dude, I feel like Sean Payton is just designed to hurt me. Last week, I talked about RJ Harvey, and nobody out there, and I see you all in the comments and blah, blah, blah. Nobody thought the Denver backfield was going to enter week 1 as a 3-headed committee. Tyler Beatty being part of this was not in the cards at all. And so, the Harvey call, dude, come on. He was the best guy on the field last week for the Denver Broncos. I would have put his name back in here, but I don't know what his snap share looks like in week 2. Whereas I'm going to go with J.K. Dobbins here. RB27 and ECR. I think he honestly should be an RB2 in rankings this week. And looking at what his role is, well, we're still trying to figure out, okay, Sean, use RJ Harvey. Come on. Come on. Do it. Do it now. We know what J.K. Dobbins is going to do in this backfield, and that was very apparent in week 1. Played 53% of the snaps, led the backfield in snaps, saw all 3 of the team's red zone carries, got 18 touches. So you're talking about a player that probably ends up somewhere in that 15 to 17 touch count, most of that being on early downs. If he's going to get the money touches near the goal line, he looked good on a per carry basis. He had a 19% missed tackles forced rate, 2.63 yards after contact per attempt. And with Bo Nix's struggles, this is another thing, just looking at in my mind's eye of how this game could go. I think Denver could lean on their ground game this week with Bo Nix struggling out the gate. Indy, they just absolutely crushed the Dolphins last week. So we really didn't see the Dolphins able to really just invest in the running game, lean on the running game because they were down bad quickly, that we just didn't see it. But this is also an Indy run defense, Seth, that last week gave up the highest yards after contact per attempt, the 6th highest rushing success rate, and they had the 11th lowest stuff rate. So if Denver wants to lean into the ground game with Harvey and Dobbins this week, they should be able to do it, man, with a lot of success.
Yeah, we need Tyler Batty out of there. I'm so sick of whether it's him or whether it's, in the past been Jaleel McLaughlin. There's always this third guy just taking a couple of these snaps and taking a couple targets away. And if J.K.
I think it's going to happen, but I don't know if it happens this week for Harvey.
I think you just come to a point where you got to play your better players, and Dobbins and Harvey are both a step ahead of him, in my opinion. And Derek, I really have a lot of respect for this call because we have to be willing as fantasy analysts and managers to adjust our priors. And I think you and I and a lot of us here at FP were very high on Harvey this offseason. But right now, it's one of those situations where it looks like Sean Payton is going to trust the steadier hand, the older veteran here in J.K. Dobbins. The 53% of snaps, they bode and tell that story, as well as those red zone stats that you're talking about as well. So, I think a lot of respect coming your way to just correcting, maybe some of our earlier thinking here. And I think there is still a day for RJ Harvey. I just don't think it's here in week 2.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this backfield is going to evolve as we move through the season. I think Harvey is going to still be the leader of this backfield. And I never said that Dobbins wasn't going to have a role in this backfield. I always thought he was going to have an early down role because Harvey wasn't a guy that I thought Sean Payton was going to load up with 25 carries or 25 touches on a weekly basis. So I always thought this was going to be a split backfield. But yeah, man, I think Harvey's eventually going to own the backfield in the sense of he's not Tyler Batty is going to go away. I think this is going to be a 2-headed backfield. But yes, Dobbins right now, the matchup is there, the workload is there, and people need to sit here and wake up. Again, he's still being ranked as an RB3. I think that's wrong, man. I think that his workload is safe, and I think you're looking at a floor of 12 touches and probably more of a median of 15 to 17. And if he's getting the guy the red zone carries, then you're looking at 15 to 17 with touchdown equity. That's an RB2, dude.
Let's move to your second must-start running back here, Derek, and it's a player that I think a lot of fantasy managers are going to have a hard time trusting after a very dud, not only in week 1, but in the opener there on Friday night.
So I'm going to caveat this with there is some risk here, and I'm not going to shy away from that because the risk we saw, it's prevalent based off of what happened on week 1, Seth, and that's Isiah Pacheco. So he's RB32 in ECR. So like the ECR is the ranking itself shows you that there is risk here with people ranking him as an RB3. There's RB2 top 15 upside if you're playing Pacheco this week. Now, I'm not going to say the downside is not there because what we saw in week 1 could easily happen in week 2 if the game script goes sideways, the Eagles put up a ton of points and the Chiefs find themselves trailing. And the other part of this, if Andy Reid wants to Andy Reid as hard as he can Andy Reid and just go away from the running game when last week it was working. But KC, it's like, I just don't understand if you're the Chiefs. Okay, the game is not out of reach. It's close. You're having a lot of success running the ball on the ground with Pacheco.
Right.
And yet you lose Worthy and you think the idea is that we need to sit here and win this game by feeding 16 targets to Hollywood Brown. I can't square that. And I'm not saying that this doesn't go sideways for Pacheco. But if KC does what I think they should do and leans on their ground game this week, and Pacheco is spearheading that, he's going to walk away with a really strong day, Seth. For, look, 51% of the snaps last week, he only got 7 touches and 28 total yards. I'm not telling anybody that's great. If they would have given him more of the backfield and more of the touches last week, he would have had a much stronger game. On a per-touch basis, he looked good, dude. 20% missed tackle rate, 3.2 yards after contact per attempt, and I know I'm talking about at 5 carries, but still, he did look good in the work that he got. And Philly, you can attack them on the ground, man. 6th lowest stuff rate in week 1. 7th highest yards after contact per attempt allowed. So if you're KC, the way that I think they should attack this game, and I'm not saying don't throw the freaking ball. I understand that they're going to have to pass, but they need to come out and they need to lean on the run, chew up some clock, keep the Eagles offense off the field, and use Pacheco. And I'm not one of these old boomers. I'm like, establish the run, but they should be running the ball and they should feature Pacheco this week. If they do that, he's going to have a good game.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Javonte Williams last week fall into the end zone twice against the Eagles. Obviously, Jalen Carter, again, not in that mix. And, I've kind of been pretty vocal that I never thought Pacheco was going to have this 70 to 80% snap share that he was seeing early last year. But how did the Eagles win that Super Bowl? Well, the Chiefs just didn't run the ball, man. They had, I think Pacheco and Kareem Hunt both, combined for under 10 carries in that Super Bowl game back in February. So it's very dangerous if they want to continue to let the Eagles chew clock of their own. I think you fight fire with fire here, and it could be a good situation for him. I just hope he's getting a little bit more of the share there, but it does look like it is a little bit of a 3-headed monster there. Your guy, Brashard Smith, even, popping in and out a little bit here and there. So I am excited. And I think this is one of those situations without Worthy, without Rashee Rice, Pacheco, in my opinion, is their second best offensive player outside of Patrick Mahomes. And, kind of depending what you feel about Travis Kelce right now. Yeah.
I mean, plus 5 check. Travis Kelce, in a game where Worthy goes out, he's basically a ghost. He's yelling at their offensive line. None of it looked good. Come on, man. Super Bowl rematch. They can't get waxed here. They cannot get absolutely just crushed here. And if they decide to try to go pass heavy and do all this stuff, they probably are. But we'll see how it goes, man. I think Pacheco could still walk away with a good game, though.
Before we keep it moving, I wanted to remind everyone that you can dominate your fantasy football league with Fantasy Pros Premium, now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on any of our partner sportsbooks. The easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy football tools all season long is doing this promo right now. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get yourself started. All right, D-Bro, we're on to your must-start wide receivers for week number 2 of the NFL season, and you're going back to the well with someone you were high on coming into week 1.
I mean, it didn't let us down in week 1, man. It was one of the good calls of the week, and I don't understand what people are looking at to rank Keenan Allen as the wide receiver 38 in ECR. What did you see out of the Chargers offense, people, to rank Keenan Allen as a wide receiver 4 going into week 2? He was the wide receiver 10 in fantasy last week. He led the Chargers in targets. Amongst 77 qualifying wide receivers, Seth, Keenan Allen, 23rd in separation, 10th in route win rate. He had a 26.5% target share, 2.1 yards per route run. And this week he gets a Raiders secondary that gave up the 8th most fantasy points and the 9th most receiving yards to wide receivers in week 1. And I'm not scared of any corner on that freaking depth chart. Fire up Keenan Allen as a wide receiver 2 with confidence this week. All in, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the route participation last week. I loved the target share for him as well. And it was something that you hit on in the offseason. I think when we were doing a lot of our Q&As over there on twitch.tv/fantasypros is that Keenan Allen has this trust of Justin Herbert. He has the trust of this organization as a whole.
And not dust. He's not dust.
No. And we saw it down the stretch last year. We saw it in week 1. And this is the same Raiders secondary that, while I like their upfront pass rush presence, I don't trust this secondary. I mean, we saw Boutte last week go for over 100 yards on 6 receptions. Stephon Diggs, even though he didn't look at 100%, wasn't playing a ton, still double-digit fantasy points for him. Demario Douglas had 7 targets in that game as well. Didn't really make anything do with them, but I think there's big games waiting for really all the Chargers pass catchers, and for Keenan Allen to be ranked this low feels like a bit of a miss. I don't want to say a mishap, but definitely an overlook by some of the rankers.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. But I mean, again, we talked about this in draft season when I said as soon as they signed Keenan Allen, ADP wasn't going to catch up to where Keenan Allen should be getting drafted. And it still hasn't caught up. People are not putting enough respect on his name. And it's like, bro, like, just throw all the priors into the trash. Like, all the Greg Roman stuff, people in the offseason, they're like, oh, they won't be pass heavy. Greg Roman never does that. Although he did it for a 10-game stretch last season. He won't do that again. They come out firing Justin Herbert. Is in must-start territory. He's in the top 6 quarterbacks ranked for the week.
Wow.
And people are like, oh, Ladd McConkey's a wide receiver 1. But Keenan Allen, can't start him. He's a wide receiver 4. Come on, dude. People got to adjust. He's going to crush again this week.
I'm so glad we had that conversation in the preseason about, hey, maybe Ladd McConkey isn't the set it and forget it wide receiver 1 that we are drafting him, most that early best ball season, because Keenan Allen is in the mix. And it was something we had to take account for. And I moved guys like JSN above him in my rankings. And I'm very happy after week 1 I did, just based on the usage. But Derek, I did allude to him earlier. You're going after one of these Patriots wide receivers that a lot of talk on the internet about this guy because, one time ago, he was projected first round pick in the NFL draft, suffered some injuries late in his career at LSU that really pushed him down boards and, made him fall to the New England Patriots.
Yeah, going to Kayshon Boutte here, wide receiver 53 in ECR. And this comes down to we could talk about all the things that happen as a prospect, off the field stuff, crappy testing when he should have listened to his agent and said oh, don't run then. Yeah. If you're slow and you're slow, don't run. Just don't do it. But looking at him this week, man, I nothing about the Dolphins secondary strikes fear into my heart. And what Kayshon Boutte did in week 1, I think is more real than it is fake in the sense that, he only earned a 17.4% target share, but he led the team in first read share with 23.3%. So I think easily this week, considering the matchup and stuff, we could see his target share creep into the 20s, the mid-20s, if everything goes right, man. Put up 2.58 yards per route run. His separation score looked good. His route win rate, the deeper metrics that I'll look at to evaluate wide receiver play, both were really, really good. And honestly, Seth, maybe we didn't give him enough credence for what he did at the big end of last season, too. Myself included, man. I didn't even write him up in the primer because I didn't know if he was going to be a starting wide receiver in week 1. And then I went back and I was writing up this week and I was like, he really had some good games down the back half of last year, week 16 through 18 last year. I really we got to give this dude his flowers and talk about how this isn't just a one-off game. This started last year, week 16 through 18. He had a 21.3% target share. He had 2.79 yards per route run and a 25.8% first read share. Those are all incredibly strong metrics. So you marry that 3-game sample with what we saw in week 1, you got a 4-game sample, which is almost a quarter of a season. And you're like, okay, maybe this isn't smoke and mirrors. Maybe this is real. And I'm more on the real side than the fake side with looking at his production. If he does it 2 games in a row, Yeah, dude, I'm in. I'm in. And I mean, what corner from Miami should anybody be worried about? For a secondary that gave up the 7th most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers in week 1, and I know a 1-game sample, but please tell me, are you worried about a Dolphins corner this week, Seth?
No, I'm not. And the interesting thing about a prospect like this is when he came into the NFL, I think we all thought he was just going to be someone who probably, floats around a bench and is just kind of a jag, if you would. And late last season, you said it, over 7.5 PPR points in the stretch down there in 5 of the last 10 games. So he was at least giving you a floor. And I think when you look at this New England Patriots pass catcher group, he's locked into that flanker role, right? Like I think he's going to man that a ton because it's really Mac Hollins who's kind of been in and out of the X with Stephon Diggs splitting time as he's getting back. Of course, you have Pop Douglas.
Kyle Williams is a nothing burger right now. Like he's not even running. He didn't even run 10 routes last week. See, people don't need to worry about him either.
Yeah. So I think like, I trust Boutte at this point more than I think I do with someone like Stephon Diggs. I really do, just because I think he's going to be out there more, and he obviously has a connection with Drake May, and I think that was an oversight on yourself, on myself, and really everyone in the fantasy community this offseason not giving him enough credence.
Yeah, dude, I think it's just one of these situations where it was kind of like easy for him to kind of get lost in the sauce of it, when it's like, they added Stephon Diggs. He's getting the headlines. We think he's going to be the number 1. They added Mac Hollins. They added a talented rookie in Kyle Williams. And then everybody goes to Pop Douglas and they say, oh, the New England slot roll with Josh McDaniels. Oh, yesteryear slot receivers. And then it's like, with all of those narratives and other guys we're talking about, none of us were talking about Kayshon Boutte. None of us, myself included. And so, yeah, I think he just got lost in the mix, lost in the equation. And when you're looking at all these other guys and I'm like, okay, yeah, but they made all these additions. So isn't that also kind of an indictment on Kayshon Boutte? Yeah. And Kayshon Boutte, like in week 1 was like, and he came back and he showed the rapport that he had last year with Drake May. And I think that's more real and there's more substance to that than it is fool's gold.
Let's stick with the New England pass catchers here, while they head to
Two Pats,
South
what could go wrong, right?
Yeah, who do you have here for your must-start tight end of week number 2?
Man, 2 Pats, what could go wrong? I know my Patriots takes did not age well, like milking the sun from week 1, but I'm back in on it, man. I honestly would have picked Drake May for this and gone a few different directions if he wasn't QB 10 in ECR right now. But this is partially a Miami Dolphins take where I'm not scared about their defense at all. And number 2, it's gone under the radar too and I know Hunter Henry is ECR. He's tight end 12 right now. I think that's more of a reflection of all of the injuries at the tight end position than it is Hunter Henry, people putting respect on his name when looking at the tight end position. Because, a lot of people are out there like, oh man, am I going to play Brenton Strange? Am I going to play Harold Fannin? All these other guys off of the waiver wire before Hunter Henry. And I'm like, oh no, he should be a tight end 1 this week. He should be a top 10 option, honestly, because if you look at Hunter Henry, his usage in week 1 was fantastic, dude. 17.4% target share. He had 1.83 yards per route run. He had 66 receiving yards, Seth. So like, if you would have added a touchdown, he'd have been a top 5 tight end for the freaking week. But because he didn't score a touchdown, it's kind of going under the radar just a little bit. He also got a 20% first read share that was tied for 2nd on the team. And now we match this up against the defense for the Dolphins that, look, I talked about, they cannot stop any wide receivers. They can't stop tight ends either. And this is even going back to last year. They allowed the 12th most receiving yards and the 12th most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends last year. Hunter Henry should be a top 10 tight end. He has top 5 to 6 upside this week if he gets in the end zone.
Yeah, Miami, they allowed Tyler Warren to have the top 5 day last week at the position.
Tyler Warren looked like a freaking stud. Shout out to you for your, what did you have him top 5 in the offseason?
Yeah,
in your
I had
rankings?
him 4 overall.
Yeah, shout out to you, man.
Yeah.
Talk about some cojones, but the call is looking pretty good for you, Seth.
I'm feeling good. With that Penn State bias aside. And Derek, the thing about Hunter Henry that's funny here is I've always compared him a bit to like a toxic ex you keep going back to, and eventually they keep burning you. But the interesting thing here is we're seeing the usage, right? 93%. We weren't seeing that in terms of snap share last year. I think there's a clear division that he is the best tight end on this team. For years, they kept trying to give us different tight ends in the mix there. Austin Hooper's just a guy, right? Like he's going to be out there. He's going to help block sometimes. But and Drake May, man, some of his best throws on the day. I know some of his passes were very errant, but some of the best ones were to Hunter Henry. I don't know if you saw that sliding one that he got when Drake May was on the move. That was excellent. So
I did. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying I am excited about Hunter Henry, but it just feels wrong still. Like I'm going back and I'm going to get cheated on again or something.
Shoot, man. I don't think it's going to happen. And the last point I'll make, and for everybody, it's like, dude, you're bringing up 2 Patriots. Can we also talk about the volume should be there to support multiple pass catchers this week for a Patriots offense that came out and passed at a top 5 rate?
Very
None
shocking.
of us saw that coming.
No.
None of us saw that coming.
Mm-mm.
So that also needs to be discussed here too, in the sense that, yes, I picked 2 New England Patriots. The passing volume will be there this week for an offense that, like, I thought they were probably going to come out and be middle of the road on passing rate in week 1. And Josh McDaniels said, oh, no, baby, we're going to chuck it around the yard. They're top 5 again this week. Both these guys have like 7 to 10 target upside this week.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if some of that stuff is sticky right there. I mean, just all across the league between the high scoring game and the Steelers Jets one in week 1. It was really interesting to see some of those trends. So we'll see what's sticky here. But D-Bro, appreciate all your analysis and insight. That is going to do it for us on this episode of the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Comment down below your favorite week 1 must start player. And while you're here, make sure you're smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're new. We got a ton of content coming out for you each week. We want to make sure you're staying up to date in the fantasy realm. For Derek Brown, I'm Seth Woolcock. Take care, y'all.